Today, we're focusing on a specific and fascinating coin, the 1965 US 1-cent coin. This seemingly ordinary penny has a history that reflects a pivotal time in American currency. From its design to its value today, this little coin holds a lot more significance than you might think. So, grab your magnifying glass and let's take a deep dive into the 1965 1-cent coin, its history, its value, and why it might just be worth more than you realize. Before we explore the 1965 penny's role in history, let's start by taking a look at its design. The 1965 1-cent coin may look similar to pennies from other years, but there's a lot happening behind the scenes. The obverse of the coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, which has been in circulation since 1909. But let's dive deeper into the specific context of 1965 and why this year was so important for the penny. 1965 was a year of significant change in the United States. It was a time of political, social, and economic upheaval. The country was involved in the Vietnam War, and civil rights movements were gaining momentum. Meanwhile, the U.S. economy was also going through a transformation. This brings us to a key aspect of the 1965 penny, its composition. You see, the 1965 1-cent coin marked a turning point in U.S. coinage. Before 1965, the penny was made primarily of copper, a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. However, due to the rising costs of copper during the 1960s, the U.S. Mint was forced to change the formula for the 1-cent coin in 1965. In fact, 1965 marked the first year that the U.S. penny was minted using a core of pure zinc, with a thin layer of copper plating. The new composition of the 1965 penny was 97.5% zinc, with only a thin 2.5% copper coating. This was a major shift in American coinage. Copper prices had become too high, and so, the penny's composition was changed to reduce production costs. It may look similar to its predecessors, but the 1965 penny is actually lighter and cheaper to produce than the earlier copper-based versions. This change in the composition of the penny wasn't just a reaction to rising copper prices. It was part of a broader effort to preserve valuable metals during a time of increasing inflation. By reducing the amount of copper used in coins, the U.S. Mint could maintain the cost of coin production and ensure that the nation's currency system continued to function effectively. But while this penny might seem like just another run-of-the-mill coin, the 1965 1-cent piece is actually a key part of the history of American currency. And to many collectors, it holds surprising value. Now, let's talk about the value of the 1965 penny. Most of these coins, in average circulated condition, are worth just 1 cent, which is what they were designed for. But there's more to the story. If you've ever heard of rare or uncirculated coins, you'll know that certain 1965 pennies, especially those in excellent condition or with unique characteristics, can be worth a lot more than face value. First of all, let's address the most important fact. In 1965, there were no mint marks on the penny. The U.S. Mint had decided to eliminate the use of mint marks on most coins during this period as part of a push to simplify the production process. So, unlike other years where you might find pennies with mint marks indicating where they were made, Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, the 1965 penny simply doesn't have that distinction. This makes the 1965 penny relatively common in appearance. However, certain 1965 pennies have become highly valuable because of minting errors. Some 1965 pennies were mistakenly struck on copper planchets, the copper blanks used for older pennies. These so-called error coins are extremely rare, and collectors pay top dollar for them. For example, a 1965 penny struck on a copper planchet can fetch anywhere from $1,000 to $20,000 or more, depending on its condition. Additionally, the condition of the penny plays a huge role in determining its value. Pennies in mint condition, that is, coins that have never been used in circulation and have been carefully preserved, can be worth far more than their face value. A well-preserved 1965 penny, especially if it's graded as MS-65 or higher by professional grading services like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, can be worth $10 to $20. Coins in exceptional condition can sometimes fetch even higher prices at auctions. In fact, some of these era coins have sold for significant amounts at auctions. A 1965 penny struck on a copper planchet is one of the rarest and most sought-after varieties, and it's a prime example of how a small mistake at the U.S. Mint can turn a seemingly ordinary penny into a rare treasure. But even if you're not a collector searching for rare pennies, the 1965 penny holds historical value. It represents a key moment in U.S. monetary policy and reflects the changing economic landscape of the 1960s. From the shift in materials to the social changes taking place across the country, the 1965 penny encapsulates a unique chapter in American history. Today, the 1965 penny continues to circulate, although it is increasingly rare to find one in pristine condition. While it may not be worth much in daily transactions, its significance as a collectible item, especially if it has minting errors or is in excellent condition, means that this little coin can still hold big value in the world of numismatics. So, what's the takeaway? The 1965 1-cent coin may seem simple at first glance, but its history, its composition, and the potential for rarity make it a fascinating part of American coinage. Whether you're holding one in your pocket or adding it to your collection, the 1965 penny represents an era of change and innovation in U.S. currency. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive into the history and surprising value of the 1965 penny. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more coin-related content. Who knows, maybe your pocket change is worth more than you think. Until next time, happy collecting! If you've ever wondered why the 1982 penny stands out or what makes it unique, you've come to the right place. We're going to explore the history of this coin, its significance, how its composition changed, and why some 1982 pennies are worth far more than just 1 cent. So sit back, relax, and let's uncover the story behind this fascinating little coin. Let's start by looking at the basics. The 1982 1-cent coin features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, just like all pennies since 1909. But while the front design has stayed mostly the same for over a century, the story behind the 1982 penny is anything but ordinary. You see, 1982 was a pivotal year in the history of U.S. coinage, and it's all thanks to a significant change in its composition. Before we go into the specifics of the 1982 penny, let's understand the background. Prior to 1982, the U.S. penny was made mostly of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving it a distinct reddish hue. But by the early 1980s, the U.S. was facing rising copper prices. As the price of copper soared, it became more expensive to produce coins, and the government had to make a decision about how to keep costs down. This is where things get interesting. In 1982, the U.S. Mint made a historic change. They decided to change the composition of the penny. The new formula was a mix of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper, which drastically reduced the cost of producing each penny. The result? A lighter, less expensive penny that looked almost identical to the previous copper ones but was made a very different model from 1982 onward. The U.S. penny was made with a zinc core and a thin copper plating, which explains why modern pennies are lighter than their predecessors. But here's the kicker, 1982 was the year of transition, and there was some overlap between the old copper pennies and the new zinc-based ones. Now, here's where things get really interesting. In 1982, there were two different types of pennies being produced, the copper-based penny and the new zinc-based penny. This changeover led to a fascinating situation where both types were in circulation during the same year. So how do you tell the difference? Well, it's all about the weight and composition of the coin. The copper pennies from 1982 weigh about 3.11 grams, while the zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams. The easiest way to tell the difference is by weight. The copper penny is noticeably heavier. But there's another thing to note, the appearance. While the copper penny has that classic reddish tone, the zinc penny tends to have a more dull, pale finish due to its copper coating. So why does this matter? Well, for collectors, the 1982 penny is a significant year. Not only is it the year the U.S. Mint made the change to zinc, but the fact that both copper and zinc pennies were minted means that certain 1982 pennies are rarer and more valuable than others. Let's break it down. In 1982, there were 4 different types of 1-cent coins minted. The copper pennies from the first part of the year, the zinc pennies from the second part of the year, and 2 different types of mint marks, one for the Philadelphia Mint and one for the Denver Mint. So, in total, you have 4 variations of the 1982 penny, and some of these are far more valuable than others. The most common 1982 pennies you'll encounter are the zinc-based ones with the D Mint mark, which were produced in Denver. These are relatively easy to find and are worth only their face value of 1 cent. However, the real value comes in when you find an early 1982 copper penny. Here's where the value skyrockets. Some of the copper 1982 pennies were mistakenly struck with the new zinc composition planchets, making them incredibly rare. These rare copper-plated pennies, known as 1982 copper-era pennies, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on their condition and whether they've been certified by a professional grading service. One of the most notable examples is a 1982 D copper penny that was sold at auction for over $10,000. That's right, a penny, 1 cent, worth thousands of dollars. These rare copper versions were accidentally struck on zinc blanks and are highly sought after by collectors. Other than the rare era coins, uncirculated 1982 copper pennies, those that have been preserved in mint condition, can also fetch higher prices, sometimes ranging from $10 to $100, depending on the quality of the coin and its rarity. Additionally, 1982 pennies in mint condition, even those with the zinc composition, are valuable to collectors who focus on coin grading. A well-preserved 1982 penny that is graded as MS-67, mint state, by a professional service could be worth up to $50 or more, though it's far less rare than the copper-era coins. To summarize, almost 1982 pennies are worth only 1 cent. Some can be worth a lot more. The rare copper-era coins, especially those minted in Denver, can sell for thousands of dollars. Uncirculated copper pennies from 1982 also have strong value, particularly in excellent condition. For collectors, the 1982 penny represents both a significant change in U.S. coinage and a unique opportunity to find a potentially valuable piece of history. So, the next time you find a penny from 1982 in your pocket, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look, because you could be holding on to a rare and valuable coin. Whether it's the fascinating story behind its composition change or the potential for discovering a high-value era coin, the 1982 penny is one of the most intriguing and collectible coins in American numismatics. Thank you for joining me in this deep dive into the 1982 1-cent coin. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more awesome coin content, and leave a comment below if you've ever found a rare penny. Until next time, happy collecting, and keep an eye on your change. You never know what might be worth a fortune. This penny, like many others in the world of numismatics, has a fascinating history, and in certain conditions, it could be worth much more than you think. Whether you're a collector or just curious, you're in for an interesting ride as we dive into the history, value, and rare variations of the 1990-60 penny. Let's start with the basics. The 1990 61-cent coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design that's been with us since 1909. This is the same design we've seen for over a century, created by Victor David Brenner. On the reverse side, we see the image of the Lincoln Memorial, which has been on the back of the penny since 1959. Now, the 1990 60 penny was minted in Denver, indicated by the D mint mark. But let's take a step back and understand the context of the time. The 1990s were a period of change and development in the U.S. economy. The country had just entered the 21st century, and there was growing concern over inflation and the rising cost of metals like copper. As a result, the U.S. Mint was constantly looking for ways to produce coins more efficiently and at a lower cost. By 1996, the U.S. Mint had already transitioned to using a more cost-effective composition for the penny. After the price of copper increased in the 1980s, the composition of the penny changed in 1982 from 95% copper and 5% zinc to a mix of 97.5% zinc and just 2.5% copper plating. This was a necessary change to keep up with rising production costs and copper prices, and the 1990 60 penny was part of this ongoing shift. These modern pennies, like the 1990 60, are composed mostly of zinc, with only a thin layer of copper on the outside. So, while it may look like the copper pennies from years past, the 1990 60 penny is actually a lighter, less expensive version. While most 1990 60 pennies are very common and still worth their face value of 1 cent, there are some interesting details to consider. In fact, the 1990 60 penny is part of a period of large-scale production of pennies by the U.S. Mint, with billions of these coins produced every year. But that doesn't mean all of these pennies are the same or worth the same amount. One of the key factors that can affect the value of a 1990 60 penny is its condition. The condition of a coin is one of the most important factors when it comes to its value in the world of coin collecting. A coin that is well preserved, free from wear and tear, and in near-mint condition can be worth more than its face value. An uncirculated 1990 60 penny, meaning a coin that hasn't been in circulation and shows no signs of wear, can be worth more than just 1 cent depending on its condition and grade. A 1990 60 penny in MS65, mint state, could be worth $2 to $10, and higher grades like MS67 or MS68 could fetch up to $50 or more. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect. So, while most 1990 60 pennies are common and won't bring in much more than their face value, a high-grade coin with minimal imperfections can increase the value significantly. If you have a well-preserved penny from 1996, it might be worth getting it professionally graded to find out how much it's truly worth. Now, aside from condition, there is another aspect of the 1990 60 penny that makes it unique: the potential for error coins. Every year, millions of coins are struck at the U.S. Mint, and sometimes, due to various factors like worn dies or mistakes in the striking process, error coins are created. Some 1990 60 pennies were struck with errors that make them even more valuable to collectors. The most common type of error found on these coins is the double die error. This occurs when the die used to stamp the coin has been improperly aligned, resulting in a noticeable doubling of the design elements, typically seen on the words Liberty, or In God We Trust on the obverse. Double die errors are highly sought after by collectors, and depending on the quality of the error and its visibility, a 1990 60 double die penny can be worth anywhere from $50 to over $500. The rarer and more pronounced the error, the higher the price. Some exceptional 1990 60 double die coins have even been sold for over $1,000 at auction. Error coins like these are an exciting part of the world of coin collecting, and the 1990 60 penny is no exception. So, if you have any 1990 60 pennies in your collection, it's definitely worth taking a close look at them to see if there are any errors, particularly double die variations. Beyond errors, there's another reason the 1990 60 penny can be valuable: rarity. While millions of these pennies were made, certain coins, especially those with minting imperfections or unusual characteristics, are relatively scarce. So, if you happen to find a rare 1990 penny in your collection, it might be worth more than just a few cents. So, to sum it up, while most 1990 pennies are still worth 1 cent, there are several factors that can make them worth much more. High-grade, uncirculated 1990 pennies can fetch anywhere from a few dollars to several hundred, depending on their condition. And if you're lucky enough to find a 1990 double die era penny, you could be holding onto a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Thank you for watching this video about the 1990 1 cent coin. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment if you've ever found a rare penny, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome coin content. Who knows, your next find could be a valuable treasure. Until next time, happy collecting, and keep your eyes on your change. Before we get into the juicy details, let's start by looking at the basics of this penny. The 2000 1 cent coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design that's been on U.S. pennies since 1909. On the reverse side, we see the classic image of the Lincoln Memorial, which was used on pennies from 1959 until 2008. So, in terms of design, the 2000 penny might seem pretty standard, right? However, there's more to this penny than meets the eye. Let's take a step back and understand the context of the year 2000. The year 2000 was a milestone, not just for the world, but also for U.S. coinage. As the country entered the new millennium, it was a time of both celebration and technological change. The U.S. Mint was under pressure to keep up with the demand for coins, and they were also dealing with the rising cost of producing pennies. Here's where things get interesting. The 2000 penny, like many other pennies produced around this time, was struck at the Denver Mint, which is why it bears the D Mint mark. But it was during this period that a huge shift was taking place in the world of coin production. As the U.S. Mint began producing more and more coins to meet the demand for currency, a focus on efficiency and cost-effectiveness became key. By 2000, the U.S. Mint was churning out billions of pennies each year, and the 2000 penny was part of that massive production effort. In fact, in 2000 alone, the Mint produced over 12 billion pennies, the highest production number ever for a 1 cent coin. This wasn't just a lot of pennies. It was a massive step in keeping up with the growth of the U.S. economy at the time. But despite being mass-produced, the 2000 penny is notable for several reasons. First, its composition. While earlier pennies were made primarily from copper, by 1982, pennies had switched to a zinc core with a copper plating. This change was made to combat rising copper prices, and the 2000 penny follows that same composition. 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. But that's not what makes this coin interesting when it comes to its value. So, if most 2000 pennies are so common, why should we care about them? Well, like many pennies, there are some rare variations that make certain 2000 coins more valuable to collectors. One of the most significant variations of the 2000 penny is known as the 2000 wide AM penny. This particular coin has a rare error in its design, a wider than usual gap between the and M in America on the reverse side of the coin. The error is subtle but noticeable, and it's become one of the most sought-after variations of the 2000 penny among collectors. The 2000 wide AM penny is a truly rare find, and collectors are willing to pay top dollar for this error coin. Depending on the condition, a 2000 wide AM penny can sell anywhere from $100 to over $1,000 at auction. But finding one in good condition is no easy feat. The coins with this error are rare and often difficult to spot, which makes them highly desirable among coin enthusiasts. At auction, the 2000 wide AM penny has been known to fetch prices in the thousands, depending on its grade and rarity. In fact, the highest known sale price for a 2000 wide AM penny was over $20,000, which just goes to show how valuable these coins can be when they have a significant error. Of course, error coins aren't the only ones that can fetch high prices. Uncirculated 2000D pennies, those in mint condition with no wear or damage, are also valuable to collectors. For example, a 2000D penny graded as MS67 or higher can be worth anywhere from $10 to $50, and in some rare cases, more. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Coins graded at a perfect MS70 can command prices well above $100, depending on demand. On the other hand, most regular 2000D pennies, without errors or special characteristics, are still worth their face value of 1 cent. But when we talk about coin collecting, condition is everything. So, if you happen to have a pristine 2000D penny, it's worth taking a closer look. It might just be a gem hiding in your pocket change. So, what's the takeaway here? While most 2000D pennies are still just worth 1 cent, the 2000D wide AM penny is a rare and valuable error coin, with some selling for thousands of dollars. Even non-error 2000D pennies in mint condition can be worth more than face value, especially for serious collectors. And with so many of these coins being produced, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on the pennies in your collection. You never know, you might just find a coin that could make you a nice profit. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the 2000D 1 cent coin. If you found this video helpful or interesting, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more coin collecting tips and valuable coin discoveries. Who knows, maybe you'll stumble upon a rare 2000D penny and find yourself a small fortune. Until next time, happy collecting.